Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Sorry for the delay. Unfortunately, we had some tech issues that, the internet. So sometimes you just can't get around them, even despite, they just have a mind on its own. So anyway, we're getting off to a little late start, but I want to welcome you. This is episode 274, and tonight we have the pleasure of having Tuhon Michel, and I'm really looking forward to this. Just by the test run, there were a lot of things he says that really resonated with me and all that. And he's also really under the radar. I mean, Martin found a gem. I don't know. Martin's got a knack for that though. And we're gonna be bringing them up now. And Martin, Martin, man, a man with the questions comes out with these questions like taking candy from a baby. I don't know. Man's gonna put me out of a job. So, but we're gonna be bringing them up. And I am looking forward to this. So, folks, if you got questions, if we got folks already jumping in, if you are jumping in, please tell us where you're watching from. Smash that like button. And without further ado, here we go.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, so, all right. Hey, you know what? We got to work. That's all that matters. I do guys said somebody did just message regarding you, Tuhon, and they're saying, is there a podcast tonight? And I just want to just send a quick message to Joe Bates and just tell him yes, a little late start, but we are on now.
At least we're on. That's all that matters.
That's it. Just go to my wall. So, Martin, your questions, as usual, were excellent. So I'm just going to let you. Oh, he's already here. Never mind. But take it away, Martin, and I'll click in.
Yeah. I'm sure you're gonna have some questions of your own that you're gonna between my questions. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So first of all, hey Michel, thank you for doing this. This is really nice of you. I know you're a very busy man, very very busy. And but I think it's kind of important for people to know that you exist because I just had one class with you and I was blown away. So
thank you.
Thank you for coming, man.
That's a nice compliment. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go. What were your first martial art experiences? Because I don't think you started with Kali, right?
No. I started fairly late in Cali. I started martial arts when I was fairly young. My dad used to box in the military, and that was my first introduction to martial arts was boxing. And he also taught me a little bit of martial arts, and so that was all good and well, but I was always interested by formal martial arts training. And when I was a kid, the only thing that was around was Taekwondo, and luckily we had an excellent instructor near where I live. His name was Tommy Roy. He passed away, unfortunately, but he was a great teacher, and he was very big on realism. He looked like Chuck Norris, except he was a redhead, and he was meaner than John Kreese. So it was like quite the introduction. But he was awesome. I'm not saying that with disrespect. Tommy was awesome. He was a great teacher. And I trained with him for quite a while. Then when I moved to university, I went with our master instructor, a Korean grandmaster now, by the name of Chung Won Kap. And there I did my studies for 7 or 8 years while I was in university. And with him, I got a nice blend of Aikido with my Taekwondo. And back in
oh, nice. Okay, so the locks and everything.
Absolutely, it's like Korean Jiu-Jitsu. And during that whole time too, we were still allowed to strike to the face. So it's very close to kickboxing. And while I was there, I was also a kickboxing instructor. So I did that for a while. And then I moved to Ottawa for a period of 3 or 4 years. And then I got to train with my childhood hero, Jean-Yves Thériault, the original Iceman from the PKA world of full contact karate. And Jean-Yves was like an excellent teacher, and I learned a lot from him. And at the same time, I started doing Kanryu Jiu-Jitsu with John Tarian. So they were both in the same school. So I did both disciplines. And up to now, it was a fairly normal evolution in martial arts. And then in '99, I moved to Montreal and I was looking for a school, and I stumbled into Philippe Gelina's School of Martial Arts, and that's where things changed. Tuhon Philip, Grandmaster Philip, Shifu Philip, whatever you call him. He has so many titles. Yeah, I'd never seen a master like that. And the first time I went there, I went looking for the master, and I'm used to traditional martial arts, right? You know, the gi and everything, and you know, a lot of you know, the politeness and all this stuff. And so I bump into this guy wearing Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt, and you know, handles, and his shirt's open, and I'm like, I'm looking for Master Gelina, and he goes, yeah. I said, well, I'm looking for Master Gelina. And
I'm
like,
looking.
yeah. So that was my introduction to Phil. No formality, nothing. Just a very human person, and probably the most skilled martial artist or the most knowledgeable I've ever met. And Phil really opened my eyes to what martial arts are. And with him, I got to blend my boxing together with the rest of his martial arts. And at that time, I was doing Jeet Kune Do, and I lived in Montreal for 4 years, and I only did Jeet Kune Do that whole time. And I had no interest in the Filipino martial arts. Like, sticks did not interest me, and I thought there was something wrong with the people who kept whacking each other with sticks.
Who were participating in that, huh?
Yeah, like, yeah, that's not for me. Something wrong with those guys. So, anyways, after my time in Montreal was done, I moved back to Ottawa for work, and I started doing Muay Thai with an excellent instructor of the name of Bob Carver. And Bob is the one who introduced me to combatives, and he's an adjourn under Chai. Well, an adjourn under Ajahn Chai, I guess. I don't know if he's changed his title. It's been a while. But Bob's also the one who introduced me to combatives and directed my readings and everything, if you will. And I learned a lot from Bob. And then from then on, he sold the school to his one of his top students, Naren Fialkowski. Man, I hope he's not watching this. I can never pronounce his name. So anyways, Naren was my teacher, and also Sasha Ejazi. I've trained Muay Thai with those three guys pretty much the whole...
Sorry, so they were teaching Muay Thai and combatives at the same time?
No, not at all. It's just Bob at the time was under contract with both Special Forces and the National Police Force, the RCMP, as a combatives instructor, and we would train outside of the regular class. And at the time, Bob was teaching a blend. He was mostly focused on Muay Thai, but he also had Jeet Kune Do concepts, and we did Mande Muda Silat if we were in. And then we took it a little bit farther, and that was the basis for his combatives. So anyways, so that went on for about 15 years, and so that was great. And then I picked up other stuff. And while I was there, I'd been maybe a year or two with Bob Carver and those guys. When I met my good friend Calvin Lawrence, who was a retired RCMP officer, who was also a combatives instructor at Depot, which is the training school of the RCMP, and he had been a VIP PMPD, they call it Prime Ministerial Protection Detail, for a very long time. So this man knew a lot about combatives and training and teaching. And most of all, he was a boxer. He was a former Canadian champ. And he's a really big guy, but so slick and smooth and everything. So I'd say after Phil, Calvin was the second biggest influence on my martial arts development, because we became training partners, and he taught me how to box properly and how to be like a boxer. And everybody thinks it's easy, but you know, it took me like 12 years to get a decent jab, and it wasn't lack of trying. You know, it takes a long time. And the body mechanics from boxing are what I used when I started in Pekiti. So at the same time, I should have mentioned also, while I was training with Bob, since we had the Mande Muda and the Muay Thai under Chai, we were also doing the Jeet Kune Do concepts under Guru Daniel Asanto. So I started training in all those systems, and Bob was bringing in Guru Dan for a seminar, and you needed to have basic stick and knife expertise for the seminar. So I started training with this stick for a couple months prior to the seminar, and I wasn't all that interested even after the seminar, but the knife material really interested me, as did the empty hand stuff and everything. So I pursued all that when I was with Bob. But like I said, I like the knife component very much. And by the way, during this time, I stayed in touch with Philippe in Montreal, and I kept training with him. He was still like my main mentor in the martial arts, I guess I could say. And going back and forth with Phil. And then one day I just asked him flat out, which of all the martial arts you practice, and I don't know if you know, but Phil practices a lot and is a master and a grandmaster of multiple disciplines aside from Pekiti. So I asked him what he thought the best and most complete martial arts was, and he surprised me by saying Pekiti-Tirsia. And so that's what piqued my interest. I was like, well, I must have gotten something wrong somewhere. And so I started training with him long distance, and I'm a slow learner, and I wasn't. It wasn't very efficient for me, so I convinced him to come with me to the Philippines, and we attended a seminar alongside Tim Wade's instructors, and fantastic experience. I'm a big fan of Tim. He's a great person. I love his military component of the system. I like the way he does it. It's great. So I got to meet a lot of very nice people, and everybody there was skilled in multiple martial arts. And it's almost like they say for Remy Prezas, Pekiti was the art within your art, because there was all these connecting points in there that I could relate to my knowledge. And same thing with all the training partners I met there. Everybody having a different martial arts background ended up having a different flavor of Pekiti, because it was highly influenced by what you practiced. And
but it was all touching components of what they already knew, but in a different way. So
that's it. It depends on your level of experience, right? It takes a while, and if you have a good base, you're going to start to link things up, especially in the biomechanics department. So a lot of the stuff translates well, and you can generalize skill from one discipline to the other. And that's why sometimes, and I think it may be the case with Phil, is when you've practiced a variety of disciplines long enough, when you get to the top, they all start to have more similarities than differences. So it makes it easier to learn another discipline. So once you have a strong base in anything, it's a good gateway for any other art. And my way of looking at Pekiti was like having a black belt or something like that in any art was like your bachelor's degree, and Pekiti was like your master's degree, because almost everybody that really gets into Pekiti usually have a strong martial arts background. And to me, that's a compliment to Pekiti, because if you already have a strong background and you're interested in this art, there must be something to it, right?
True.
Makes sense.
True. Yeah. Very interesting. Hey, before we continue, Dean, let's do a shout out. There's like many people.
Yeah, we got some folks that are jumping in. We got
that's probably mom and dad, right?
Yeah. Yeah, folks, if you're watching, please tell us where you're watching from. Smash that like button. We got Joseph Bates, who found us. We got Ken Jowers. We got Tuhon Phil.
Hi, Phil.
Yeah, we got Tuhon Jack. We got Royce. We got Pascal. We got Danny Terrell. I'm shocked. We got Pekiti guys here. We got
Pascal
Sean
Gravel
Gerber.
is, Pascal Gravel, right? I think
Pascal is another one of my brothers, and
that's it.
We trained together, and because you didn't say Gravel, so I wasn't sure. But yeah, Pascal. Actually, we teach each other. He's an excellent martial artist who's a master level.
We got
Recently,
Alvin.
He recently came to Pekiti. We're happy.
So I just had a quick question. Fascinating journey. I mean, the way what you described to us. When you I know you were traveling back to go see Tuhon Phil to get the material and all that, and I know you mentioned that you had in England for the knife and all that, did you just kind of surrender and then, take the stick material, everything else and all that? But you really did you try to just hone in on a knife, or were
You know
you?
what? I tried to get better with this stick, and like I guess I'm not coordinated when it comes to this stick, and I had no real interest, so it made it even harder to learn. So I got strong basics. I think I got a very good 1 and 2, and
Sometimes they say that's all you need.
yeah, that's it. But I still keep practicing the other stuff, and I realize that the 1 and 2, it's not just the 1 and 2, but the more you work the stick, it's true, it will correct your
Body
body
mechanics.
quite
Yeah.
a bit. And but in my case, I'm always in a hurry, and I was frustrated. I wasn't learning fast enough, so I started to go to the Philippines on a regular basis for privates with Grand Tuhon Leo, and I told him I want to learn the hand material first, and then the knife, and then maybe the stick. So he's like, "No, you're learning it upside down," and I'm like, "Well, that's what I want to do, and I feel like I'm in a rush." And he agreed, and so I started doing a lot of knife, and then the translation with the hands afterwards. So a lot of knife, and Grant Tuhon is a very generous teacher, and I used to think he didn't have a lot of patience, but recently I looked at old videos from when I started.
He's like, man, he had a lot of patience with me.
Oh, I think I would have slapped me. Wow. Like, because now it looks easy, and I'm over analytical, right? And I tend to complicate things in my head. But yeah, I can see GT had a lot of patience with me. That's the other thing.
Wow. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that doesn't mean he didn't slap me, though. That's
yeah. I'm sorry. That was an accident. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah.
I just find it fascinating. Like, what really attracted, like when Martin brought you on, when you talking the test run, I was like, wow, man, this guy is like what I want. I just want a knife, but I had to take the byproducts, so to speak. You know what I mean? And I don't regret it. I think it enhanced everything. But I was like you, man. I just want a knife. I want to see. That's what I'm going to see out there. I mean, you know what I mean. But so I found that just fascinating. So, and I think it's really neat that GT was accommodating. I mean, like he kind of came around and kind of gave it what you wanted. It sounds like.
You know what? Like, with no disrespect to GT, and he's pretty pig-headed, but I'm even more pig-headed, and I think he respected that in me.
So you were standing your ground. He's trying to stand his ground. It looks like you came on.
Yep. And wow. I'm kidding, because the thing about learning with GT it's a lot of laughter too. Like, I had a lot of fun. Like, don't get me wrong, the training was hard and very painful, and I'm also a big believer that pain is part of the process, because when you get hit once, you tend to not make the same mistake twice. So it's a really good way to learn. And obviously that was a big influence on Tuhon Philip too, because like everybody who trained with Phil knows that it's kind of rough compared to other teachers. And then when we go out there and we play with other people, they find we're rough. And like, personally, I've had people say I was a little brutal, but I think I'm delicate compared to my teachers.
But it's true what you say, because I train with Sébastien Poirier, and he's a direct student of Phil Genina, so he learned the same way. And I'm kind of learning the same way also.
You know what? It's a great way to learn. And Sébastien is a great friend. I've brought him over to give seminars. As you know, I usually bring Phil, but I've also brought Sébastien and Min Pham, because they're also good teachers, and they're different. They have a different take or flavor on everything. And to me, I see us all like a big family. So, and I still, I may have a title of Tuhon, but I still train with Sébastien, and he teaches me as much as I teach him. So all these title things, you shouldn't let that keep you from learning from anyone.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think sometimes some folks get not everybody, I think, but they get complacent. You know what I mean? Well, I'm this. What do I need to do?
Not just that, they're like, well, this is my rank. So if I go train with somebody of a lower rank, how does that look? Personally, I don't care how that looks. It's
no, I appreciate that. That's wow, man.
Yeah. So you said when you learn with GT, you said you you kind of learn in a special way because you started with like backwards. You started with empty ends, then knife, then maybe a bit of stick.
Yeah.
But I heard from Sebastien that you learned it was even more special than that. Am I wrong?
Okay. I don't know if it's because I'm French, but I challenge and I talk a lot, and I go, no, not this. I don't know. What about that? And I ask very directly for certain things, and GT always obliged. And a lot of people, I think they've been like almost, I don't want to say brainwashed, but with the notion of respect from the traditional arts almost drives you nuts, right? Oh, don't ask him a direct question. I boxed for so long, I don't care about any of that stuff. And
he's back. Okay.
Sorry, that was a call. So I thought what I was going to say about that kind of broke my train of thought. What was I saying again?
You were asking direct questions. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, but with traditional martial arts, people become overly polite, and they think everything is a slight, and oh no, he's too high, and if people just approach him and ask him flat out, most of the time you'll get what you want.
Cool.
And that's more the boxing mentality or sport mentality than the overly traditional,
Yeah.
Tuhon, do you recall what year you started going over to see him?
Oh yeah, the first time I went was in 2010 with Philip, and when we met with Tim Wade and all his students, and it was a great time. It was a great great. I went multiple after that. Again with Tuhon Philip and my friend Kevin Kelsall, and and then afterwards I started to go by myself because sometimes the schedule didn't work for everybody, and I was a little selfish too because if I could have GT all by myself, then I could get all the material I wanted, right?
No, I mean you're looking out for your journey.
There you go.
Because you started with MTN first, then knife, it seems like you were very focused on the practical application of the system. Did you learn like the whole curriculum, the traditional curriculum, all the seguiras and stuff like that, or?
Jeez, man.
No, the thing I told GT is like I can't learn forms anymore. I'm like Homer Simpson. My brain is full, and if you put more stuff in there, it's going to push the old stuff out. So I learned drills based, 2-man drills, single drills, and things like that. And the other thing that GT decided to do with me, I was like an experiment, right? And it's hard for me to relate to other Tuhons because one thing he told me is like, if we're going to be efficient, I'm not going to give you any vocabulary. You're going to have action reaction. He's like, as you probably know, Hicks' law, the more techniques you have, the longer it takes you to react as you're going through the catalog. But if you don't have any techniques or you don't know any names for anything, you don't have a technique catalog, you just flow. So GT was of the opinion, and I think it's pretty smart. I happen to have a degree in psychology, and he thinks by not having vocabulary, you bypass that part of the brain directly and you go directly to reaction. And
interesting.
I got to say, it worked for me. And although I've had students that were very, they doubted the approach, if you will, like the results worked for me. Most of my students agree with it. And, but then they go on YouTube and they ask me, do you know this? And I don't know. Do you know that? I don't know. So anyways, and
attack me, we'll see.
Right.
And I remember training with my friend Tony Chana, which is one of Phil's seniors and a senior to me also. And one time he asked me, so what did you learn with GT? I'm like, well, I can't really say. And he's like, oh, you want to keep it secret? That's all right. I'm like, no. I'm not keeping it secret. I just can't say. So, he thought I was messing with him, but later on we played, and all my reactions, since he knows all the formal structure and the vocabulary, he would go, oh, that's this, oh, that's that. I'm like, yeah, sure, man, if that's what you say it is, because I don't know. And I never tried to learn it afterwards. I never tried to learn the vocabulary. I worked all the drills that GT gave me, and I just kept developing them. And then we'd see each other, although I haven't seen him from COVID, and I got to say I miss him. I haven't been able to assess my progress with him because, to me, and he explained to me that Pekiti is pretty much a formula. And once you got those basic drills down and the proper reflexes down, you could elaborate from that. And the Tuhon title to him is like permission to permutate techniques and develop your own material.
Okay.
And that's how he put it to me. And whatever I do now, or I have students coming in and they'll want to play, and they'll have an Nino Santo background or some other system, and I'll go, whoa, that's not Pekiti. And, and they're like, why? And then I have to explain why we wouldn't do this particular approach. So it's a very, it's a quick way to learn. It goes to the essentials. It's even quicker than Tri-V, I'd say. But the thing is, it's really hard to teach afterwards when you don't have vocabulary. And later on, I went to teach military and police a little bit. And then I had to come up with a vocabulary. And at the same time, I couldn't use Filipino terms because that's not what they want to see in their SOPs, right? They want it to be accessible and understandable from just reading the curriculum, right?
Interesting.
Wow,
Very interesting.
That's really interesting, man. What you said about, like, because I understand the Tri-V, kind of the bridge system that he developed for the military and all that, just from doing previous interviews with some other PTK folks. But I find it now, do you yourself, if a student were to come to you, would you give them, like, if I say, hey, I just want this and this and that, would you give them the same as how you went to GT?
You know what? It would depend on the student, and if they had a good reason for it, fine. I gotta say, I'm suspicious of people that show up wearing military pants and police garb and background that. So
and
then they all, like if you're a hairdresser and I'm all about the knife and killing.
I know, and they're coming dressed like fatigues, and Lauren might want to go. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Wow, I just find that so interesting. Wow.
You know what's funny is quite a few of my students have a military background, special forces too, and those guys will never wear military stuff when they're working out. There's more. They'll be wearing a Mickey Mouse T-shirt than anything else.
Yeah, just regular. Martin, what's that
work
about?
pose. To them, it's their work pose. They're not gonna work in their work
I know.
clothes.
It's interesting. It's like,
yeah.
Why do they do that?
Well, now big marketing thing, right? So fight from a SEAL, learn to fight from this and that. It's
join the special forces.
And you know what? I have a very close friend in the special. He's retired now from the special forces, and he doesn't do martial arts at all. What he does is a lot of resistance training, and a lot of walking, running, cardio, and stuff like that. And I asked him, "Hey, how come you don't do martial arts? You're a warrior." He's like, "Dude, I carry a carbine and a pistol, and if I ever get myself in a fight where I have to fight hand to hand, I'm pretty stupid and I deserve to die." So I thought, that makes a lot of sense. And, and people also think that because you're in the special forces or SWAT, you're training martial arts all the time. It's not the case at all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of conditioning. Those guys are extremely strong. That's what they focus on. They have a lot of endurance, cardio, that's what they focus on. And most of the training is how to operate as a team and not shoot your partner in the head. It's not so much about disarming a knife or stabbing a terrorist. That stuff is, most of the time, guys, they hire civilians to teach them. There are some exceptions. There's a combatives instructor in Ottawa who's got a background in special forces, and he's an exceptional martial artist. But that doesn't mean this guy is the norm, right?
I see.
Perry's supposed to be here, Tuhon.
What's that?
Perry's supposed to be here watching with us. If he is, he just messaged me and said that he wants to check out the interview. So hopefully, I think he's here though, Tuhon. And we got Terry,
Cool.
Raymond Flora, Australia.
Dean, just call me Michel, all right? It's
okay. I just I'm just a polite. Yeah, I got you. I appreciate.
You're very polite. So you wouldn't ask a direct question then, right?
Yeah. Good one.
Speaking of the title, Tuhon, when did you receive it?
I don't know. I think it was 3 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
And it's, to me, like, it was more, I took it as a great gift from GT, and I wasn't sure I was worthy, but I didn't want to argue with him or anything. And just so you know, when I started with GT, I'd already been doing Filipino martial arts for a little bit, but when I started my school, it was just so I could practice with somebody, right? So I started off, I was very much into the basics, and I grew, and my students grew with me. And I didn't have a rank for 7 or 8 years. And it was kind of funny because, people would ask me my rank, and I'd say, I don't have one. And then they're like, well, why would we train with you? And I'm like, gee, I don't know. But anyways, I still ended up getting students, and it worked out, and none of them were too obsessed with ranking. So it worked out great. And then I think after 7 or 8 years, GT asked me my rank because he wanted to bring me to the next level. And I'm like, I don't have a rank. So he basically forgot to promote me. I'm not saying I deserve the promotion either, but all these things they're not very important. What's important to me is the knowledge I got from GT. And I really think, like, when it comes to martial arts, he's a genius. He's an incredibly smart man. And for martial arts, this guy can do it all.
Yeah, I keep hearing that. Just not only charismatic, but just obviously incredibly intelligent. And just over the decades of what he's produced and has done and what have you. Man.
He dedicated his whole life to his art. That's what he did.
Yeah, and, without a doubt,
Yeah, the source. It pretty much all comes from him. Anybody who's teaching or training Pekiti, it came through GT. It's
directly or indirectly.
It's quite an accomplishment for a man to, his biggest regret so far is that he hasn't managed to make any inroads in Africa, and that just tells you how much he wants to spread this art, because I think it's on every continent except Africa.
South America definitely, Asia definitely, Australia, I'm sure.
Yeah,
obviously North America, South America, Europe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think that's his big goal, and if he can make it happen, I'll give it a try later on.
You'll go to Africa. I'm going to spread it, GT.
Yeah, I have some there, so if I can, I'll just do a seminar so we can feel like.
There you go. We're in Africa.
That's right. Exactly.
Nice. Well, you touched a bit about martial arts and military, but do you still think PDK is a good tool for people working in the military or the government?
Good question.
I don't know. It depends on your job. I think everybody should know how to defend themselves, especially if you're in a situation like that. But the thing about the military that you have to understand, first of all, regular military, I think they get like half a day of combatives and that's it in basic. It's unless you pursue it on your own, you're not going to have access to a lot of training. Special forces get a little bit more, but and I know the current trainer there. He's an incredible guy, great martial artist. But those guys, like I said, they're super strong. They work out all the time, and I'd say their main, not technique, but their main asset is sheer aggression. And that's one thing I remember Tuhon Philip told me when I started. He's like, you're starting this stuff. You're not very good. So until you get good, you should go for sheer aggression. Sheer aggression will replace technique when you need it, right? But when you combine the two, it gives you somebody like Phil, who's still a pretty fearsome fighter at his age. I sure as hell don't want to stick fight him. It's he's one of the he's one of the nicest, most reserved people that I know. But you give that man a stick, something happens. Just don't take him off. Don't take him off or even play with him. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, we got a
Very.
from
Yeah.
Glad that the others hear from the raging Acadian.
Yeah, I'm Acadian, so same people as the Cajun from Louisiana. So that's Perry for sure.
Oh, how
fun. Okay. We had a very, very small, actually, I shouldn't call it a discussion, you and me, about that, because it was like messages back and forth in the chat. But I'm going to ask the question. Do you think it's a good idea to carry a knife as a self-defense tool?
Not really. I have a knife that I carry sometimes, and I think my blade is like 1.5 inches or not even 2 inches. And that's it. I see people who carry these big, these like implements of death there. Good luck explaining that to a cop. But it also goes to my approach to self-defense, right? Like I told you guys before, I don't believe in dueling. Like he pulls out his knife, you pull out your knife. The reality is, if somebody attacks you with a knife, and I don't care how much you deploy or practice your deployment of the knife, blah, blah, blah. While somebody's trying to stab you and you try to go for yours, that's when you're going to get stabbed. So I think it's a very okay. And the way I teach, I sound like I'm obsessed with knife. It's quite the opposite, actually. I'm obsessed with empty hands against the knife. And that's why I learned the knife, because I wanted to learn the counter. So I don't really teach my student the knife. I teach them how to counter. And that's how they learn how to use a knife. They learn the basic attacks, but we spend way more time on defending the attack. Because as I was mentioning the last time, a child with a knife is dangerous. So a full-grown man who's angry don't need a lot of training to do a lot of.
I tell you, it's so difficult because, like Martin could tell you, like I'm as well. It's like my major I'm doing against knife because I just feel that's what I'm going to see out there. Today's economy, drug addicts, what have you, and I totally agree with you. I think there's that marriage of opportunity threat. Like if you're not dealing with a threat first and you're trying to get opportunity, like you said, you're going to get freaking cream, man.
Yeah, that's it. You'll be distracted by the intention of going for your knife. And and there's another thing too, if you've done a bit of reading, and I've spoken to a lot of police officers and the likes, and most of the time, if somebody shows you a knife, it's because they want to intimidate you and they want your money or they want to scare you off, or so there's no engagement. Usually if you see the knife is the first part of a negotiation, as my other teacher, Robert Paturel, says, is the opening salvo, if you will. So you just leave, give them what they want, or leave. That's all it is. But if somebody attacks you with the intent of doing you harm, they're not going to show you the knife first. They're just going to pull it out and use it. So that's why you'll be defending yourself before you start to reach for your knife. Why I don't think it's particularly useful to carry a knife.
I mean, well said, man. That's right. I think it's so fascinating. Like when you bring this stuff up, this is like just one of my favorite topic areas because Yeah, like you said, like exactly, like if they're pulling it out, they like yeah, right. They want something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they wanted to kill you, man, it's just it's
Well, you know that old saying is like a knife should be felt and not seen. That's what
mm,
happens when he wants to do you harm, right? You hear these stories of a guy getting in a fight with the other guy, and then he took a couple punches, and then when the guy leaves, he start to realize he's bleeding. Those punches were knife puncture wounds. You know, you can't, you don't really know, and that's another thing Robert Paturel was big on. When you've been in a fight, and it's done, check yourself to make sure you haven't been stabbed because you won't even feel it, which is a pretty scary thing to
think
consider.
about. I know. I keep reading. Right. I felt like you listen to some of the accounts of the officers that got stabbed and missed it. It felt like a punch. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
it's just man, oh
Uh,
man.
yeah. Another friend of mine, Joel Lawson, was telling a story about a taekwondo champion who got attacked, a friend of his who got attacked by a couple guys, and he dispatched the three of them with kicks. And the third one, he did a spinning roundhouse and knocked him out. So he was very proud of himself, and he was like, very happy. Everybody's on the ground, and all of a sudden, he feels like the back of his leg is wet. So he puts his hand on his butt, and he's just been cut open by a blade he didn't see. When he did, the guy pulled out his knife and he spun around and he cut his own leg. And so that guy touched his leg, saw the blood, and he passed out. So when the ambulance got there, all four were on the ground. So it was the way Joel tells it is pretty humorous, but there's nothing really funny about that. Just a
Mm.
dark, yes. But the thing is, before you get in a fight, you never know how it's going to turn out. So just, especially these days.
I know, like the climate these days, you know what I mean? Like you really should be fighting because of family. I mean, like if you're just anything else, it's just like stupidity. We got some comments in here.
Completely. Yeah.
We got Piper. You will not get a signal. Yeah, let's start doing the shimmer more again. Again, the ambush, the tactics in Cape Town. They have the over-century stimulus is because they want you just to give up your stuff. So sometimes you will see that, but. Yeah, the knife is an ambush weapon. Can't argue that, Maestro Ray. 21-foot rule is broken if the 21-foot rule starts at point blank. Yeah, I think they reduced it by falling on their backs and indexing the gun, if I'm not mistaken. Good comments.
The 21-foot rule, I'm not sure. There's been a lot of debate around it, and Hockheim has a really good take on it. But yeah, it was a drill, and now people are using it to shoot as soon as they see a knife at 21 feet. I'm not sure that's a great way of handling it. And you have to remember in those videos, the knife wielders were GT Gahe and Guru Dan, so that's not everyday junkies.
Yeah, not every day, like crackheads coming at you. Yeah.
Good point.
I'm not
Good
saying,
point.
but I'm not saying it's not dangerous to have somebody with a knife at 21 feet, but to justify it as a good shooting every time, a lot of policemen get issues with that now. So
because of because of the initial distance, huh? Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Man.
You kind of answered my next question, but I was gonna ask if it's not a good self-defense tool. Why do you think it could still be a good idea for a civilian to learn a weapon-based art like FMA to learn how to protect themselves? But you kind of answered you learn how to attack with a knife, so you know how to defend against it.
Yeah, and you know what? And the reality is, like, almost no one ever gets attacked with a knife. So if you're training because you're afraid of getting attacked by a knife, maybe you should get a gun or something because it's a long commitment. Just training for So you got to do it because you like it. Honestly,
exactly.
You
have to enjoy it.
Yeah, you're just attracted to it. Now, it doesn't mean you're criminal, but you're just fascinated with it.
Yeah. And it's most fights. It's going to be a punch. You'll get punched in the face, or if you're fighting Will Smith, I guess it'll be a slap. But mostly it'll be punches. Yeah.
I have a question on that later on. It's from Sebastien. Big surprise there. All right. Okay. Next question. Do you think PTK empty hands is enough for someone to learn how to fight, or is it necessary to cross train, in your opinion?
Well, I'm a big fan of cross training, and I always was. Uh, but I don't think it's necessary. And I think, look, with Pekiti, a slap, the slap, the hack, and the spear, you got everything there. That's all you need. And it depends what your tactics are and how well trained you are. It's like boxing, if you tell me is boxing good enough, because you mostly have 3 punches, right? There's more variations, but jab, cross, hook, I've never seen many uppercuts in a fight, but jab, cross, hook, it's only 3 shots, right? Is that enough? So to me, there's a lot of people, they talk about the system. That's why I like my very condensed version of Pekiti, because if you can do the kind of damage you can do with boxing with 3 or 4 punches, you don't really need 120 techniques. So the strikes from Pekiti are more than sufficient. And the other thing I liked learning from GT was all the locks and counter locks. That whole system is incredible. And you can use that to just put an end to something without even hitting the person. That's one of the things I like about the way GT teaches Pekiti. You can use it to control a person without injuring them, to sending them off to their ancestors. So it's a nice spectrum,
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it is, man. Wow. Just to piggyback off Martin's, and I know you're saying, the hack, the chop, spear, the slap, and all that. I agree with you. But when you hear the terms like Panatukan, empty hand, all that, which actually it's coming up in an episode just on FMA empty hand, and what is it? You know what I mean? But I believe Western boxing is going to enhance anything you do. And with your boxing background, would you tend to agree to the FMA folks that they could make things work better, easier by having a good background in boxing, Western boxing?
Absolutely, because not only does it give you a good base for body mechanics, avoidance without blocking, slipping, bobbing, and weaving. That's all very important skills. And according to Danny Nasanto, the bobbing and weaving comes from the Philippines. I don't know if you've ever seen his lecture at the Smithsonian, where he explains how Filipinos actually changed Western boxing from the hands that were like this to turning them like this, because that's where the knives were. So, and all the avoidance, instead of standing and taking your shot like a man from the old days, you can't take any shots with a knife. So that's that's why the emphasis on mobility, and that's why Floyd Mayweather is my favorite boxer. He's so evasive, and to me, that's the perfection of the art, if you want. And it'd be as hard to touch with a knife as with a punch, is the way I see it.
Yeah. Can't argue that. No, well said.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked a bit about Robert Paturel, the founder of Boxe de Rue, street boxing.
Yeah.
How do you connect PTK and street boxing? Street boxing, for people who don't know, well, the real name is Boxe de Rue. It's a French art under Robert Paturel. First of all, if you want, you can talk about a bit about the Boxe de Rue, because I don't think many people know about it in this channel.
Okay.
But how do you connect PTK and Boxe de Rue, and do you think they complement each other well?
Honestly, you can't say you connect them unless you're in a fight, and then everything comes out. So it's hard to tell, right? So if I hit somebody with a jab and then I kick them in the balls, did I practice Boxe de Rue? It's just a training methodology is all it is. And Robert developed it with a colleague and a friend of his named Eric Keke. So it was developed by these two individuals, and Robert is always very quick to point that out. So it's not just just.
I didn't even know that.
That's it. And Robert's background, he was a European Savat champion. And I don't know if your guys are familiar with Savat, but it's really violent. it's much more violent than kickboxing, because these guys do the cross kick to the kneecap, and they have the leg kicks, have the boxing, they have everything in there, and it's quite brutal, but at the same time it's beautiful. They're very artistic in their training, but the application is like they're very, very tough guys. And Robert was a European champion for, I think, for many years. He was a French champion. I don't have all his things in his record in front of me, but he had something like 108 professional fights, which is, if you're not in Thailand, that's quite a high number. And so Robert was then recruited to teach the police, and he was a police trainer. And then he looked, like he told me, he was training all these guys, and then he would see them go out and have all the fun. So he's getting upset. So he decided to join the police as a police officer, and he remained their trainer. And then he was incorporated in the RAID, which was their national SWAT team equivalent, where he continued to be the trainer and one of their top operators. Robert is a very special person. He's written a lot of books. He's had a lot of like crazy life experience. He's been all over the world. He was actually paid to research martial arts, and that's how he picked everything he liked. And another thing that's interesting is he's very good friends with Guru Dan Inosanto, because Guru Dan had a Savat instructor, which you may know, Salem Asli, which passed away.
It just passed, huh?
Exactly. So Salem, he knew Robert because Robert is a legend, and he in Europe for martial arts. So he brought Robert into the Inosanto Academy, where he taught Savat there for, I think, 10 days. So the two became really good friends, and Dan then ended up going to France for one time, and those two get along great. They have to be translated when they speak to one another, but they like each other a lot. I've confirmed it with both Guru Dan and Robert. So yeah, it's a cool connection. And so yeah, Robert ended up learning a lot from Guru Dan and vice versa. So he incorporated a lot of Filipino martial arts in his system. And so yeah, he sent a lot of. Sorry, I keep getting messages. So yeah, he managed to develop his own system with the traveling and everything. And while he was in Los Angeles, he discovered the PR-24, the Tonfa. And then he brought it to France, and he developed a system around it for police. And interestingly, he was assisted in that by Éric Lolagnet, who's also a Tuhon under Grand Tuhon Leo. And Éric was a student of Robert. I met Éric in the Philippines, and through Éric, he introduced me to a very good friend of mine, Joël Lawson. And then Joël introduced me to Robert, and everything got all connected. My friend Joël, who's not very well known, is a former world Muay Thai champion. He's very good. But he's just not well known. He spent his whole career as a combatives instructor for the police, the special units, and then after that he became a bodyguard, and he's been in private security ever since. And he also had a big impact on me in terms of combatives training. He's very no nonsense. And he ended up introducing me to Charles Jousseau, who's like a Silat pioneer in France and probably the roughest person in martial arts today. Like, he makes Phil look delicate. It's crazy. Wow. But, so through Charles, I met Sébastien Verrou, and through Joël also, who's also a top-ranked Silat instructor. And all these guys, they all know each other. They're all very close. Everybody cross-trains over there. The level of martial arts in France is really, really high. So, but getting back to Sébastien, when I met him, he was the head of the bodyguard team for François Hollande, President of France at the time. And he was the only civilian. And everybody else was a cop except for him because of his skill level. So it speaks a lot about Sébastien. So I was lucky. I got to bring them all to Canada. Joël, Éric Lolagnet, Robert Paturel, which I hope to bring back next year, and Sébastien Verroux. And, I developed a good friendship with these people, and I learned a lot. Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
So basically, Bugs Derry complements PTK very well. Both of them complement each other well.
There's a lot of similarities, and the thing I forgot to mention is I've still got 15 years of Muay Thai. I've never stopped during that time. I took little breaks here and there, but I also brought in Jean-Charles Skarbowski a couple times. Another very, very skilled individual, and
I heard of the guy. Yeah.
But yeah, he's fun. And what's unfortunate, he's more known for his stint on the Ultimate Fighter as Georges Saint-Pierre's trainer, because now people think he's funny and all that. And don't get me wrong, he's hilarious. He's a great guy, but he's a fantastic fighter. He's one of the best Westerners to ever fight in Thailand. Probably he's around Ramon Decker's level. He's an impressive guy, and all of them, not just the French people, but pretty much everybody I mentioned so far, very, very humble and just nice people.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
You touch a bit on this, but in your opinion, is the sportive aspect of martial arts important for self-defense?
Of course. I think people make a big mistake when they think, it's a sport. Just don't get in a fight with a wrestler or a boxer. You're going to get murdered.
There you go. 2 sports right there.
That's it. Same thing with judo. They're like, puff, that's an Olympic sport. I've done a little bit of judo and sambo. And so not only are they very efficient for self-defense, they make you a lot tougher than doing forms all day, There's people that convince themselves, that they have the one-punch kill. Yeah, that it doesn't work like that, I've been in the ring a lot when I was younger, and there's people I hit with everything I had, and they just looked at me. I remember this one guy didn't even bother blinking because, he wasn't too impressed by my punching, and I'd put people down with that punch before easily. But I'll always remember this guy, Yeah, he was older, and he's probably the toughest person I've ever met. And thank God he was nice, and we were in the ring.
Yeah, for me, I agree with you. For sure, not only they're athletes, but they're used to sparring and try to pull their technique on someone who's not compliant.
You know what? But it's not just that. People think it's just that. Resistance, that's all you hear. Most people have never had a punch on the nose. So when you get the punch on the nose and your eyes start to water and, you panic a little bit, that's what happens when you start. So, honestly, it's been years since I got hit like that, and I can do without. Thank you. But if you don't go through that at a certain point, you don't know what you're talking about, because you could have all the best techniques in the world, and somebody punches you on the nose and you go, oh, and I've seen it happen. People just freeze. So, it's very important to be used to getting hit.
Yeah, definitely.
So cross training in martial sports or combat sports will make whatever martial arts you practice way more efficient, because I'm a big fan of all martial arts. I think they're all efficient if they're applied properly, because they wouldn't have survived the test of time if they didn't work.
True.
That's a good point.
Okay, could you talk about the academy you had, Pekiti-Tirsia in Ottawa? Its focus, mission, type of clientele. You can talk about you can describe your style of teaching at the same time if you want.
You might be disappointed there, because it wasn't really an academy. Like I said, initially I started with a group of friends, and to see, to get better, to learn off teaching, because that's one of GT's big things is you got to teach to learn, and then you got to learn to teach. And while you're teaching and explaining things to everybody, sometimes things really click, and it really helped in my development. So I brought people up along with me, and my academy was mostly just t-shirts. I never really had a physical location until recently. Like my friend Naren, which I mentioned, is the owner of N1 Thai Boxing in Ottawa, hosted me for many years there. And pretty much all I had was a couple time slots and t-shirts for the guys. And another thing I learned from Paturel is don't wear a uniform, don't wear shorts, dress like you would dress every day, because there's a lot of people that associate the training with the gi, and psychologically it has an impact when you're on the street. Some people say, oh, I felt restricted, I don't think I could get a good grip, and they become attached to what they're wearing for their performance. I know it may sound weird, but
interesting.
It makes sense to work out in your regular clothes, your jeans. You're not pulling off a head kick unless you got your Chuck Norris action jeans. So, you have to adapt.
I actually remember when you came to teach a class in Montreal at Sebastian's class, you were in jeans and t-shirt. I remember.
Yeah.
That's
my format.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Do you still teach regularly, or only on invitation or in seminars?
I teach regularly. I've got a couple private students. I'll do seminars for friends who ask all the time. Not that they ask all the time. I'll just say yes all the time. I also, I was just talking to my friend Naren, and I might get the school going back again in May out of his location. So cool. So I guess I should have explained that about 5 years ago, I finally secured my own spot, invested in a boxing gym called Final Round Boxing here in Ottawa, where we had great fighters and trainers and everything. And I took myself a spot to teach Filipino martial arts. And it was actually the first time that I opened my school to the public, because I would only teach friends and friends of friends, or people that would come recommended, because I was very nervous about teaching the knife to people I didn't know. And once in a while I'd take a chance, and then the person would have a couple red flags, and I just tell them to leave. And that's the beauty of not having to teach for a living. I can keep my school pretty closely, So what if I don't make a lot of money? I trust all my students. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, definitely. You're not the first one to say that. I heard it from many, because I did other types of martial arts in the past, and the ones that I connected with the most were the ones that it was a side thing. It was a side gig, because they could choose their student, they could choose the way they teach. They didn't have to do flashy stuff to attract people. And it's like, if you don't like my style of teaching, goodbye. And if I don't like you, I don't have to teach you,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Like because mostly, and I was a little bit like that. Even I went commercial at Final Round. I opened the doors a little bit wider, and I got some civilian students, if you will, and they turned out to be great guys, and they're still with me. But I still got a couple weirdos that I made them understand that this was not for them, Or I would just
tell them, knife specialist. Yeah.
Yeah. You can tell a lot from the way people talk, and when they show up. Street fighter. Yeah, street fighters don't usually last very long there. So you got the third grade there, you're a street fighter. That's pretty much
interesting.
Not a fan of that.
Was you would be part of special forces guy or an ex-amateur boxing champ. The cool thing about Michel's school class was that you might be partnered with a special forces guy or an ex-amateur boxing champ. Wow.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity to get hurt, and it was
a great place to get injured.
Yeah. I'm kidding. Luckily we didn't have a lot of injuries, and as I discussed with you guys previously, we used to do arm conditioning. I'm very big on arm conditioning, and that's where I would see who's going to last and who would drop out, and then it would turn into a joke who had the most welts, and people would scream and call me names, swear, and I'm like, I don't care, we're still doing it. So, but after a while, the welts disappear. If you guys have done it, after a while, you don't feel anything, and it's actually your forearm becomes your weapon, and when you block and the other person feels it, it's attacking. As that's what GT calls attacking the attack, right? You're never passive or on the defense. Every block, if you want to call them block, he doesn't want to call them blocks. He calls them interceptions, but those interceptions are attacks. At whatever angle you intercept hard enough that, a lot of the time the untrained person loses their weapon. So that's what you're looking for.
And the will to attack.
Like I said, aggression is part of it.
Yeah.
Philip turned me on to this, and GT even more. And he's a super aggressive dude. It's funny.
Nice. What is your stance on Dos Métodos and Trivi? Because you learn it, you learn completely in a different way than anybody else, as I understand.
Well, since I didn't learn either, I don't really have a position on it.
Yeah, because you don't even know if what you did was mostly Trivi or Dos Métodos or.
You know what? Trivi is a distilled version of Dos Métodos. So, like I said, Pekiti is a formula. I probably do most of the same things as those guys. I just don't know the name for it. So it's kind of hard for me to assess.
I like that. I actually like that. That's pretty cool.
I tell you, that's the way I would want, man. What's the name? I don't know.
I know, but it for some people, it makes me look not serious, right? They're like, and honestly, I don't take myself seriously. I take the material seriously, but not myself. So I'll turn it into a joke. I don't care what people think of the way I practice.
That's probably why you're liked. They see that in you. You know what I mean? You're not.
Yeah, I don't get worked up over much there. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we didn't touch about your job or previous job because I think we cannot really talk about it. But did you ever have to use your?
Don't need to, and we can talk about something else. Did you have other questions?
Yeah. Did you ever use your FMA skills in real life?
Oh yeah, because there's a subsystem I learned with GT. I used a lot. It's called karaoke, and that's the one. That's the one I use every time I go to the Philippines. It was probably the most painful one too to learn, and I have a terrible voice, and it's tough when you're not a good singer and you have to sing every time.
Oh man, that's funny.
Training with GT, it's part of the training. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, my wife is a Filipina, and she was always inviting me at her Filipino friends, and they were always like, "Martin, come on, sing, do a song," because there was always karaoke. And one time I said yes. One time, they never asked me again. Never.
You're like, we're good.
But you know what? In the Philippines, especially with GT, it doesn't matter if you don't have a good voice, you still sing. You're going to sing. Like,
it's part of the training.
We'd go for breakfast at 5 a.m, and there was karaoke. GT would be singing. So, yeah, it's a lot of karaoke, I'll tell you.
Wow.
It's so
That's funny.
Wow. It's like a subsystem. Oh, no, you got to do karaoke?
Yeah, it's totally part. That's the one I know the most. But like I said, I'm not good at it. I remember one time I went to train with GT and I brought one of my students with me. And, when you're a kid, you have all these visions of going to train in Asia. Everybody's wearing kimonos. You're in a temple. There's gongs and stuff. And then I went to GT's backyard and went inside. He brought out this big commode. And I'm like, what's that? Well, actually, that was me the first time, but the second time I knew what it was, and my student goes, "What's that?" I'm like, "Wait for it." And GT had put us to work on the tires with the sticks and everything. And he was like, "Well, what is it?" I'm like, "Just wait." So we're working the stick. GT opens it. There's a TV in there, big sound system. It's actually a karaoke system. And, my friend's ideas of the temples and all that stuff, my friend is just kind of blown away at looking at him set up. And GT had a very particular repertoire, and that day he started singing "What's New, Pussycat," and
Oh my
that was
God, that's too funny.
yeah that you won't see that in an action movie, right? Everybody's suffering, but GT is singing "What's New, Pussycat." It was
Tom Jones,
Wow.
right?
it's a great memory. It's a great memory. It was
Is it
fun.
Tom Jones, right?
Yeah, Tom Jones. He also liked Delilah very much because in the end he had to stab her, right? So that's one of his favorite songs.
Amazing. Amazing.
That is
Yeah.
funny. I didn't know karaoke was part of the syllabus.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Tuhon Philip will back up on that one.
I have a question from Min. Sadly, he was not able to attend on live. He's going to watch the episode on YouTube, but he wanted me to ask you this. He's a good friend of yours, I know.
Of course.
Okay, Michel, you have organized several seminars in the past, not just in Pekiti-Tirsia Kali, but you've also reached outside to other styles, Penchak Silat, Boxe de Rue, to enrich your students' and friends' experience. If you could do another seminar, who would you reach out to? Who would you welcome someone back or a new instructor, and why?
Well, first of all, he makes it sound like I only bring people from the outside. One of my regulars is, of course, Tuhon Philip, but also Sebastien and Min himself. Like Min won't tell you, but I brought him to teach at my club a couple times. So since he asked the question, tell him he's the next person I'll bring in for my club.
Here you go, man.
There you go,
Guru
man.
Min is the next in line.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, he's so humble, this guy. I love the guy.
Yeah.
Very, very good. You know what? Another guy that's we mentioned him earlier is Pascal Gravel. Is also great, and he's another one I intend to bring in because his knowledge is like very, very wide and deep. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Man.
Awesome. I never met him, but I heard about him.
Perry Kelly's another one, and yeah, Pascal. It'd be good if you met him. Really good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I got a question. I got a question for you, Michel. If you had the time or the interest, what other FMA system intrigues you where you would want to train in it?
Probably Kali Illustrissimo because okay, that's right. You're a
Every
Kali
time
Illustrissimo.
that comes up.
It's funny. I missed a couple people I trained with. I should have mentioned I trained with Rommel Tortal twice in the Philippines, and he was also a very generous teacher. And with Rommel, I learned a lot of the empty hands and the locking systems and all that. So Tuhon Rommel, great teacher. But through Bob Carver, I met a man who was a student of Illustrissimo himself, a Filipino man who lives in Toronto. His name is Jerry Galano, and he goes by the name Nonoy Galano. And Nonoy had been a long time from under Illustrissimo. And Bob would bring him in for seminars on a semi-regular basis. And that guy was really, really good. So I liked his stuff, but he had trained all across the Philippines. So I'm not sure what was Illustrissimo and what was not. But also, Juan Philip mentioned Fabrizio Manzur being very knowledgeable in Illustrissimo. And he liked what he saw, and he said that there's a lot of similarities between our systems. And I think it's because, just like GT, it was very direct and to the point. And I think almost a reflection of their personality.
Illustrissimo was definitely a fighter, and I mean, just very pragmatic, simply direct, directly simple,
Yeah.
but that's wow. But the only reason I was laughing when I ask, I don't ask this every time, but when I do,
it's always that answer.
People, KI comes. It's just
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I should mention another person that I actually I'm not a big fan of learning online, but I think this was worth it. I reached out to Kelly Warden, who's a former Remy Preza student, and our niece. And I've seen different teachers of the same art, and they all look very different. But I really like Kelly Warden's approach too. Very direct, also.
Yeah,
And
he's different from the. He's really different from a lot of the modernist guys.
everybody. You know what? I had a conversation with him, and I'm definitely not comparing myself to him, but I'd say that the way I've evolved is like similar to his. Because as I was explaining, I told him I live away from Tuhon Philip now, and I live away very far away from GT. So I'd see GT once a year. He'd give me material to work on, and I would develop, rework it, expand, and play with it. And then he would come back and he'd tell me if I was on the right track or not. And so I've got all these data points, if you want to call them, every time I train them, and the connectors between those points I connected myself based on my own learning. And so my Pekiti is one big lesson that lasts maybe 10 days. Then I work that out, and then I make it evolve based on my prior knowledge of other stuff, but staying within the matrix of Pekiti, if you want to call it that. And every time I have a lesson, it evolves more. And now I got a form of what I'm looking for. And that's how it evolved. And when I was talking to Kelly Warden, he told me it was the same for him because he didn't see Remy Prezas all the time, maybe once a year, and he would work and develop. And he's a gifted teacher. He's an excellent writer. He's an impressive guy.
Yeah, no, definitely. We had him on here, and really well rounded. Like I wouldn't have known that if I had him on the show. I really got like a deeper look into what he really does and is about. And so I would agree with everything you're saying. I have another question, Martin. If you don't, Martin.
Oh, I have only one last question from
go ahead. No, I can ask mine.
That question for the last one. Right?
Yeah, I think we should keep Sebastian's question
okay, you
for
want
the
me
last.
Okay, I'll go.
Sebastian, yeah, sorry, Dean, go ahead.
No. So future goals, like for yourself, and whether you get your place back and all that. I guess what are your future goals?
I don't really have any. I don't. I'm at an age now. I don't have goals anymore. I guess I just wait for death. But it's. I'm just going to keep.
No, I mean,
I actually it's not wait for that. I guess try to push it away as far as I can for as long as I can. But no, I was definitely going to start teaching again because I do miss it. Gym closed last July, and I've just been training with this one student, Philip, my friend also, and so I was training with Philip for the past year, and I look forward to opening up again and having more room to move and more people to train with. So it should be good.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah.
Martin, very basic.
Hey, I like basic. Okay, so Sébastien Poirier wanted to know, do you think that Will Smith's slap was a good angle one? And if not, how could he improve it?
Well, you know what? It was a terrible angled one, and he cut it short, and he was kind of squared off when he let it go. So it was all very, very bad. And poor technique. And I gotta say, I feel for Chris Rock. I'm a big Chris Rock fan. I used to be a Will Smith fan. Now I'm a little disappointed in him. Let's just say that.
I feel the same way as you do. Martin. You know who gave an excellent write up about like the whole slap and how the floor because of leather shoes he couldn't get traction and what have you, or grounded. Dax Williams.
Oh yeah.
Like incredible. Yeah, just like things that he pointed out. And if you look at how he didn't get his hips in, it was more arm. You know what I mean? It was like really well thought out and articulated. But if you like, in other words, after you read Dax's stuff and you go look at it again, like you'll actually
Makes
see,
sense.
like,
Oh yeah.
I thought so anyhow. Yeah.
But it's just it was obviously more emotion than anything else.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You know who's giving a good opinion and a good summary on that? And I don't know if you guys know Joko Wheeling. He's a leadership coach and ex-Navy SEAL, and he has a podcast, Joko Wheeling podcast. He speaks about 30 minutes on what happened, the incident at the Oscars, and the way he explained and his point of view. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. It's I don't know if it's worth watching because honestly, I'm tired of hearing about this, but he gives a very good opinion about what happened, why it happened, how it could have been handled better, and etc.
You can't know what's in a man's mind, so that's why I think those
the wife looks over and then
and if there's any lesson to draw in there, Will Smith is an athlete and he was in Ali and everything. The lesson is when the adrenaline kicks in, while your gross motor skills become your fine motor skills are reduced and you're just gross motor. And
that was really gross.
Yeah. That's but I still can't believe he did that. And I'm such a huge Chris Rock fan. I feel bad for the man.
And lesson for Chris Rock: when someone moves with anger towards you, don't keep your hands in your back.
If you're not safe on stage at the Oscars, though.
Good point.
That's a very good point, man. If you're not safe anymore at the Oscars,
I never would have imagined something like that. It's pretty sad.
Not in my lifetime. Not in my lifetime. No.
There you go, Sebastien. We talked about Will Smith slap on FMA discussion.
Do you know?
Yeah, and it was poorly executed. I agree. Yes.
Hey, Tuhon, do you know what was left on Chris Rock's face after the slap? Fresh Prince.
I heard that one.
Funny. I thought it was a solid open hand because paper beats rock. Oh, jeez, that's funny. That's another thing too, man. If that was a Rock up there saying something, I don't know if Will would have been trucking up there, man.
Well, that's
exactly.
I heard somebody say, he wants to take on a comedian. He should try Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan sidekick. There goes Will.
Yeah. I'm not even sure Joe Rogan would have reacted, honestly. But that's the thing. Chris Rock handled it like a pro. He didn't.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Didn't escalate, try to defuse the situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
No ego compared to the other one.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, hey, Michel, thank you very much for this. Honestly, it was a real pleasure to have you.
Oh my God, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I mean, I tell you, man, it's those guys you don't know, man, the ones that stay low, those are some of the most fascinating ones, man. Told you,
There you go.
So I'm so glad Martin, because when you first said, I'm like, like Martin always picks good choices, but I've never heard this guy. So,
I'm perfectly fine with that. I can live with it.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I met you once. You conducted a class for 2 hours, and I was like, we have to have him on FMA discussion.
Well,
I see why.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
I salute you, sir. Thank you for coming on, and we wish you the best in everything you do. And
thank you. Same to you guys, and good luck with the show. It seems to be doing well. The number of guests you've had, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I think so. Slow but sure, and got her treading, and now it's definitely. I mean, we're busy. We're over busy.
Well, you're actually creating a catalog or a library for martial artists. They can go back and listen to all the great masters, and yeah.
Exactly.
I think
exactly.
you had on here before, eh?
No, we
Yeah,
have a couple times. It's funny you mentioned them, Michel, because Paulo Rubio is saying, like, look, you don't know what you're doing, and wait until like 5 years down the road, and it's gonna be even more impactful what you're doing, because you, like you mentioned, you are making a video library that people will be able to reference for
Yeah.
down the road.
Absolutely. This is a great initiative.
Yeah. So it's a labor of love, right, Martin?
Yes.
But
Cool.
all right. Watch out for those slaps out there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
thank
not-
you, Michel, and I hope to train with you soon, huh?
yeah.
Absolutely. I should be back.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, you take
All
care,
right,
sir.
gentlemen. Your time, and have a great evening.
You too.
You too.
And thank you again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Man, that was a solid pick, Martin.
Yeah, I told you, man. When he came to teach,
man, I gotta give you the salute, man.
yeah. Well, seriously, when he came to teach, he made us do stuff and drills that we had already done, but with little tweaks that you were like, oh,
Like those are
epiphany. So it's because he's so practical, and it's so practical, his approach, that you see all the drills and everything in a completely different way.
See, I want to do PTK now, but I want to do it like he did it, man.
Yeah, all based on reflex, no curriculum.
All right, okay, Dean, do you want 6-4-way text? No. Do you want the seguidas? No. What do you? I'm just spewing out there. Do you want some?
Yeah, but like he said, he was kind of like an experiment for GT, because from my knowledge, maybe he did it after. He's the only one that was trained like that, only purely based on reflex, doesn't know the curriculums, doesn't know the name of the techniques.
I bet you
only
he's
reflex.
One of the best ones.
Yeah,
because he just got like freaking fight stuff, and he's probably that's why he's probably, like, I'm guessing, very effective.
Yeah, it's like, do you know the technique against that kind of attack? I don't know. Attack me, we'll see. Oh yeah, I know it.
Like you said, he just never got names or yeah. That's, man. I just, matter of fact, when he said like his was even more condensed and Tri-V, I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I saw your eyes. You were like,
hey, people know, man, less is more with me, man. I want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow. But he was, really.
Yeah, great interview. Yeah.
Yeah,
great guy.
I love those guys like that, man. They're just like gems on their, like, you gotta pull them out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so humble. I mean, I talked to Sebastien and Min also. It's like they tell me after class when he's in Montreal, they just go hang out with him. He's just a fun guy to hang out with. Like, no ego, no nothing.
I bet I wonder how many PTK people don't even know about him.
I'm sure most people don't know about him.
There is a bunch that don't even know about him.
Yeah. Yeah, well, just Morgan Garrett, he says, always love meeting a Tuhon I've never met. Great show, guys. So here you go.
Yeah, thank you. Royce. Yeah. I mean, and I'm not saying I know all the big names in PTK, but I, through the show and all that, I pretty much know who's who.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Yeah, here you go. Hidden gem.
Yeah. And folks, if you're watching, who is next? I gotta reach out to. He was just on here, made a comment. Naisan Hassan. Let maybe get him on. He's an old New York guy there, the late '70s New York guys, and all that. It's going to be, and then Sunday, I'm hoping episode 1 or 2. I guess it could be 1 because the first one was kind of more intro. And it'll be PTK. I'm hoping Empty Hand. Hoping to coordinate that with Guru, Danny, and Tuhon Bill.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's going to be Sunday. Matter of fact, I'm in the midst of trying to coordinate that. So yeah, folks, if you don't know already, PTK theme kicking off.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping the first one's going to be Sunday, and just going to keep rolling them out. We might look at Tri-B versus the Dos Mesos. We might look at maybe why there's some fractured sanctions. I don't know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but the end goal will be, hopefully, that there could be some bridging. Maybe some of the bridges can be repaired. You know what I mean? That's what we're going to hope for. Yeah, that's all we can do, right? So.
Well, if we don't try, there's no harm in trying, like my mother was saying.
Yeah,
Right?
I think so. Right? At least you can look back and say, "Hey, look, I tried."
Yeah, I did my part. Maybe
Yeah,
planted
that's all you wanna
seeds
do.
for the future.
Yeah.
You know, not for now, but for the future, seeds will be planted, and
Yeah.
who knows?
That's all I want to do. I can look back and say I tried, not knowing that there's going to be guarantees or you know what I mean. But if one bridge can be mended and a couple sanctions get to work together and put the past behind them, well,
Whoa, a couple. Don't be too positive. A couple of sanctions.
Yeah, I know.
Talking about PTK here.
I know, but KI. In KI, a couple are starting to work together. So I'm
That's cool. That's cool, man. That's really cool.
That could happen. Maybe.
I hope so.
I know.
hope so.
I know. It's so.
I think different sanctions have a lot to offer each other. You know.
Totally. For the student, I mean, if you really want to be best for yourself, and you want to really get immersed into deep into the system, wouldn't you want to see different folks and how they do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just look at what Tuhon Jared is saying. He's pushing his students to go train with different sanctions. So
that's why
everybody could be like that, you know.
Because they're going to appreciate that. They're going to appreciate that. When people do that, you know what? You appreciate that, and you see your instructor in a completely different light. You know what I mean? You know.
Yeah.
Good on him for doing that. Good on him. Yeah. If you're going to burn bridges, you better not. Yeah, or just don't burn them in the first place. I mean, hopefully, right? Yeah, I'm a good swimmer. Yeah, if you're in PTK, man, you better get your swimming trunks on. You never know when that bridge is going to crash. All right, Mario. Well, this is always, like all the other times with you, has been a pleasure.
Same here, man. Same here, boss.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. I say that man might be putting me out of a job. I don't know. But till next time, let me know when you find another gem, man. We gotta do it.
Cool. Well, next month we're gonna have. I'm not saying who, because it's PTK team now, but we're gonna have two pretty cool people at the same time.
I think so. I'm looking forward to that with you.
Yeah, that's gonna be nice. All right, man. Hey, thank you very much, Dean. Thank you for the opportunity. For me, it's a real pleasure.
No, thank you. You did thank you. You made it an easy night for me. I appreciate it. So, just sitting back there like go get him. Right. All right, man. You take care.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right, it wraps up 274. Raffle starting April 1st. We're going to be helping Ukrainians, refugees. So already some great stuff's been donated. I think we got an official flyer coming out. I think Tom is just tightening it up. It looks great. And you'll see all the particulars on there. But it's go April 1st to May 15th. I think $10 a ticket. Don't quote me on that. But the flyer will have all that information. But again, all the money going to Ukrainian refugees. Okay, so every time you buy a ticket, and some great things to win. I think Brian Rodriguez is putting up a helmet, a WeCAF helmet, some other stuff like that, some lessons, if I'm not mistaken. Regalon donating, I think, like 4 to 8 books of his books. I mean, so Master of the Blade is one of them, and the other one there. But so be on the lookout for that raffle this Friday. All right, folks, thank you for jumping in. If you haven't already, please subscribe to FMA Discussion on YouTube, and I'll see you next time.